Hey y'all, the holidays are almost here, so I'm giving you some amazing deals on my books and planners so you can stock up for everyone in your life or maybe just get some things for yourself. In fact, right now we are running such an amazing deal on my Start Your Day planner. This is a quarterly planner that helps me start my day calm, confident, and in control. It's the exact morning routine that I use, and it helps me have peace in my crazy life. Normally they're $29.97, but right now when you buy a 4-pack and get planners for your entire year, you get an $80 savings plus a free gift plus free shipping. That's right. You'll get 4 planners. You'll get a signed copy of my #1 national bestselling book, Take Back Your Time, which is the book that teaches you how to use this planning system. And you get free shipping, all for just $75, which is an $80 savings. Plus, there's other amazing deals you don't want to miss. So head over to ChristyWright.com/store to get your Christmas gifts today. That's ChristyWright.com/store. This holiday season, step into the world of Scrooge, A Christmas Carol, the award-winning audio drama podcast from Hope Media Group and Compassion International. Returning for its 2024 season, this classic tale of redemption and forgiveness is brought to life like never before. Whether you're gathered with family or listening solo, Scrooge is the perfect way to embrace the true meaning of Christmas. Feel the power of the season's spirit with the story of transformation and hope. Catch Scrooge, A Christmas Carol, wherever you listen to podcasts, or tune in on ScroogePodcast.com. This year, let the story move you and remind you of the joy of forgiveness and the magic of Christmas. And now, stick around for the official trailer.
Scrooge, A Christmas Carol.
Humbug! Cratchit, you're late!
Jacob Marley, is that you?
Will be visited by 3 spirits on this very eve.
Merely shadows of things that have been.
I am the spirit of Christmas present.
Come with me.
And Merry Christmas!
Scrooge, A Christmas Carol. Wherever you hear podcasts.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Get Your Hopes Up. I'm Christy Wright, and I'm so glad you're here. Romans 15:13 says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by power of the Holy Spirit." Our God is the God of hope, and he wants you to overflow with hope. So let's start our week by getting our hopes up again. Now, I'm so excited about today and next week's episodes because this is another 2-part interview with someone who I love so much. Stephanie Mae Wilson is a 9-times author, top podcaster, and TEDx speaker, and she's also a good friend of mine. She is on a mission to be who she needed when she was younger, walking women through life's biggest decisions and transitions. And in addition to the fact that she has a new book called Create a Life You Love, she also is really great at giving advice in different seasons. And today we are talking about what it looks like to find your own voice and live your own life. And that sounds really simple, y'all. But right now, especially around the holidays, when we have a lot of transitions, when we have a lot of commitments and expectations in different family and friends and people to make happy and be in community with, it can be really hard to hold your own boundaries, have your own values, and live your own life while also honoring others. It's just plain hard. And what I love about Stephanie is she not only gives great advice, but she also is really honest and vulnerable about how hard some of this has been for her and lessons she's learned along the way. I know you're going to love our conversation. So check out part 1 with Stephanie Mae Wilson. Stephanie, thanks so much for being here.
Christy, when I tell you that I love you, that is like a understatement. And I am thrilled and honored to get to be here. Thank you for having me.
Same. Okay, so we've been friends for years. You, I believe, were either on the Business Boutique podcast or the Christy Wright Show or both back in the day. This is coming full circle. I love friends that are decades-long friends, and you were one of those friends for me. And I've loved watching you. We were just talking about this even before we started recording of just the evolution of your journey. And one of the things I love about you, Stephanie, is you invite people in to the season of life that you're in, what you're going through, what you're praying for, from singleness to marriage to praying for babies, believing for babies, having babies, the newborn stage, the toddler stage, which we were just talking about right now, of like moms. And it's, how are we going to balance it of recording from home and they're not quiet out there? How do we get them out? And so I just love that you bring people into what you're going through. And when you do, it's really vulnerable for you. It's really courageous to do that because it opens yourself up to criticism, of course, when you're in the trenches, but it gives life to people. And the thing that I'm so excited about right now that we're talking about today is your new book and how you are bringing people into this new season. And there's a difference in your voice, even in the title. I want to read the title. Create a Life You Love, How to Quiet Outside Voices So You Can Finally Hear Your Own. That authority and boldness. I'm like, yeah, girl. No, I'm an Enneagram 8. So I'm already like, I love this message. I love this message. And so we're going to dive into it today. Tell me a little bit about the backstory in your own life, in your private time, in your quiet time with God, and what you're living out in the real world that led to you wanting to write a book like this, because I know there's always a story before it turns into a book. So take us back to how this started for you.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, so I have been writing and speaking and recording podcast episodes and teaching courses for more than a decade at this point, which is wild. How does time pass? And, I've had different messages that I feel like God has given me about singleness, like you said, or about friendship, or about the between places when you're not quite in one season, but you're not quite in another. But I never knew. It was like I had written the whole 5-paragraph essay without the first sentence or without the thesis statement. And I never knew, like, God, what is the big overarching thing that how do I put words to what you've done in my life over the last 10 years and what I've been walking women through? But it's almost like I haven't been able to kind of zoom out of the map to see what the big picture is. And finally, in preparing for this book, I could see it. I could see what God's been doing in my life the entire time. I could see the struggle of my life and the way that he's brought me through it, and the way that each of the things I've been talking about for the last 10 years or so fit into this overarching thing. So you said that you're an Enneagram 8, and I love that. I love the 8s in my life. I'm a 2. So it is, I'm a 2-wing 3. Making decisions is really hard for me. I'm a people pleaser. I am a relationships person, and I will put my relationships ahead of absolutely everything. There's this example. This is a random example, but we're gonna follow the trail for a second. A handful of years ago, someone that I love but am not super close to recommended a book to me. And I have a pretty sensitive heart. And so if I watch something or read something, like, it's in my brain for the rest of time. I will feel all of the feelings. Like, I kind of have to be pretty careful about what I watch so that I don't go into like a hole that I don't mean to go into.
Right.
And so this family friend recommended this book to me, and he did it like months before, and I knew I was going to see him again. And I thought, shoot, he's going to ask me about that book. I haven't read the book. I need to read the book. And so I downloaded the audio version and saw that it was going to be like 37 hours long. And the more I got of the plot, the more I figured out, like, okay, this is really going to be like hard on my heart if I read this book. And yet I started it anyway. I started to go down this road. I had so many other things going on, but I was like, basically what I decided is I'm going to subject myself to 37 hours of like pain for me to make this other person happy. And thank goodness I was in therapy at the time, still am. God bless my therapist. And she was like, we need to talk about like boundaries stuff, because like this is no. So I use that example just to say my relationships are so important to me, and having consensus, making my people happy, having my people on my side, and also kind of looking from right to left to see what other people are doing. That's been a really big part of my life, and that's made decision-making really, really difficult. So that's really what God has been working on me, or how God has been working on me for the last 10 years, is helping me figure out not what does everybody else think, but what do I think? not what is right for the person next to me, but actually what's right for me and my personality, my circumstances, my family, like what is actually right for me. And not only figuring that out, but taking steps into it with boldness, knowing that there's not one right way to do a life. There's just not. There are so many, the things we're talking about, in this book aren't right and wrong. They're right in red and right in blue. Like, they're good and also good. And those are the decisions that that have tripped me up the most in my life. And so this book is the story basically of how God has worked this out in my life. And then also every single thing I've learned along the way. It's like a manual for anyone else like me who struggles trying to figure out what they want and moving towards it, because there are so many other voices in their life giving suggestions.
Yeah, this is really interesting. Even you giving the example of being an Enneagram 2, which I know everyone's not into the Enneagram, but Enneagram 2 would be people that are people pleasers. They're helpers. They want to serve others because I love how you said relationships are really important to me. So it comes from this really beautiful place. But like every Enneagram number or every personality style, there comes challenges with it. And so one of the challenges is that you don't trust your own voice. And so that's what I think is so powerful about this book, a book about trusting your own voice, written from a person that struggles to trust your own voice. And that's so much more impactful in many ways than someone like me writing it, even because you wrote the book you needed. And I think that's what we do a lot of times as authors. We write the book that we need from our own personal struggle and experience and overcoming that struggle, which not only makes it relatable, but it helps the reader know they're not alone. Other people struggle with this too. And so I think it's really powerful to hear you talk about this, because in our culture, certainly our personality plays into this, which I want to dig into, but there is so much pressure. And that pressure can come from so many places, Stephanie. You know it, I know it. We were even talking before we started recording, you help a lot of younger women, young adults, either singles or newlyweds or young moms. My audience and even me personally, we're a little bit older than you. And what I want to tell you, being a little older and further ahead than you, is it doesn't go away. It's not something unique to, oh my gosh, I'm in my 20s. I haven't found myself. I'm in my 40s and I'm in circles, wonderful circles with wonderful people, mature, wise people that are still feeling the pressure of, are my kids doing this? Are we wearing these shoes? Are we in these sports? Are we in this club? Do we look right? Do we act right? And some of it is very subtle. It's not in your face or they're in your face and you've got to do this, of course. But it's the more subtle messages of you're not enough or you're not keeping up or you're not doing it right. You're not parenting right. I can't believe you're feeding them that. It's the more subtle ones that I think can even eat away at us more powerfully, because it's not in our face where we put up our guard and it just chips away at our own confidence in our voice. So I'm so excited to dig into this with you, because it's something as relevant to me and my audience as it is to you and your audience. It's something that we have to learn. I love how your therapist said boundaries. We have to learn this because we're going to need them at every age and every stage. So for someone like you with your personality where relationships are important to you, you really want to make people happy, you're going to listen to 37 hours of crap so that you don't disappoint one interaction. Girl, let's go there. Okay. So for you, how did you begin to find that authority, or discover it was already there, more accurately, that authority was already there in you? How did you uncover it, discover it, begin to step into it? Was it a light bulb moment where the Lord spoke to you, or was it incremental wins where you took a little more ground back in your life? Like, what did that process look like for you?
It's sort of both. It definitely started with a light bulb moment. And so, in the book, I love that you said that we're still dealing with this, because in the book, I identify this season of life that I call the everything era. And it's like kind of 25 to 35-ish. And there's not really a name for this time, because you're not really a young adult anymore. You're not a post-grad. You're not what is this time? Yet it's our reproductive years. It's the years where we lay the foundation for our careers. It's where we're building a home and a family and a life and figuring out just so many really big things. And it's really stressful. And so I find that things are easier when there's a name for them. And so I called it the everything era. But I myself am on my way out of the everything era. I just turned 36 like a couple weeks ago. And I, my kids are 3.5. There are some things that are really I have some really big pieces of my life in place. And yet this message is still so important to me because every single day there's something where I'm like, well, this person thinks I could do this. And there's sort of this cultural idea that it's supposed to look like this. Like, where do I fit, and how do I find myself in this? But in the book, I specifically talk about some of the really big foundational decisions that happen in our everything era. So, who do I want to marry, and where's home, and where am I starting my career, and do I want to have kids? And it was when I was trying to decide if my boyfriend at the time was the one for me that I had this light bulb moment. I was spiraling, trying to figure out I love him and I like him, but how do you know? How do you know if something is forever? I've never chosen this before. This is a massive decision. And I was talking to a dear friend of mine, a really wise friend of mine, and truly spiraling down in what ifs and buts, I guess. And she finally grabs me by the shoulders, looks me in the eye and goes, "Stephanie, you get to decide." And those words, I should have them tattooed on the back of my eyelids. I need those words all the time. And those words have set me free in the most beautiful way. Because with that, a lot of us grow up with this idea that there is one exact right version of life that society prescribes, or our family prescribes, or God prescribes. And all of those, that's not true about any of that. Like I said, we're talking about right in blue and right in red. We're not talking about right and wrong here. And she was showing me at some point, you just need to decide what you want to do, what version of life you want to live. And so I did. And I did again, and I did again. And little by little, that phrase, I repeat it to myself all the time and remind myself, there's not one right way to build a life. I get to decide. Therefore, what do I want to do with this? What works for me? What fits for me? And I think about that all the time. You said, what do I feed my kids? And my kids are currently at the point where they will not eat anything. And so, some families all sit together and have, everyone has different versions of this that works for them. And again, I always have to come back to this of going, okay, what does my family need right now? What works for us? What version of good and right and totally fine do we want to pick for ourselves right now? Also knowing that it can change down the line. So that phrase, you get to decide, when I was trying to figure out if my husband was my husband,
Yes.
was the catalyst for me.
So it was him. It was that you married him.
Oh yeah. And it's cool. It's cool. It was him. And
I'm cliffhanger. We got to know. Was it the one?
He was the one. And it was really cool. I feel like, God really, gosh, we could go off on a total tangent on this, but I feel like God did us he gave me a real gift in not writing in the sky. Stephanie, you must marry Carl Wilson. He was like, who do you want to be your partner in life?
That's right.
And
that's right.
So I got to pick, and I get to keep picking, and I get to keep picking. And our 10-year anniversary is coming up in just 2 weeks. And actually on our 10-year anniversary, we are moving our family to Spain for a while. And so it's just this beautiful, kind of start or end to one chapter and beginning to another. But yeah, 10 years. And he was absolutely the one.
Hey, I don't know about you, but sometimes I can just get discouraged. I get down, I get some bad news, or I'm just in a bad mood. That's why I'm so thankful for Glorify. Glorify is the #1 Christian daily devotional app. You can start your morning by reading the Bible passage of the day. You can dive into their daily devotional. You can use their guided meditations throughout your day, and you can even finish your day with their sleep meditations to help you wind down and put your mind and heart at ease, which I can tell you I definitely need. Glorify is truly an app that points you to God and the truth of His Word all throughout your day. And right now, for my listeners, you get a 14-day free trial so you could try it out and see how it works for you. Go to glorify-app.com/hope to download the Glorify app. You want to go to glorify-app.com/hope to get the Glorify app and go ahead and get started on your free trial. Hey, Christmas is right around the corner, and I know that you are making your list and checking it twice, or probably 3 or 4 times a day, more likely. That's why I want to tell you about a huge sale going on my site right now. For the first time ever, you can get any of my best-selling books for just $9. Y'all, that's cheaper than Amazon. And guess what? Every single copy is signed by me. You can also get my Start Your Day Planner for $10 off, or you can get the Start Your Day Planner bundle where you get 4 planners, a free copy of my best-selling book, Take Back Your Time, which teaches you how to use the planning system, and free shipping, all for just $75. That's an $80 savings. So you can get planners for all of 2025 or as gifts for everyone on your list and save a ton at the same time. So head over to ChristyWright.com to stock up on Christmas gifts that help you grow yourself, grow your faith, and grow your business in 2025. You can save up to 60%, but this sale won't last long. So head over to ChristyWright.com to start shopping today. That's ChristyWright.com. I love that example of you get to decide because, you and I are different personality styles. So I think it's fun to talk about this from very different perspectives. One of the things so my kids are strong-willed, and two of them specifically are very strong-willed. And when Conley was around age 2, this was before we knew he had autism or ADHD or anything like that. We just knew he was a real challenge. And so I thought at that point, it's just strong-willedness. And so I buy this book and it's on strong-willed children, real small little pamphlet book almost. And it says, "You can't make me, but I can be persuaded." And so I read this book like ready to figure out my child, right? Like I'm going to figure out the formula, the secret sauce that is going to work for him so I can parent him and like get some sanity in my life because everything was a fight. And I read this book, Stephanie. And first of all, it talks about the beautiful aspect of strong-willed children or Enneagram 8s or hard-headed people, whatever. And they are typically your entrepreneurs. They are the ones that are coming up with cures for cancer because they break the rules, they challenge authority. So there's beautiful qualities in this. They're not just trying to be difficult and defiant and make your life hard. There's some beautiful qualities to that. But after it goes into that, it begins to describe all the traits of strong-willed children and why they do what they do. And as I'm reading, I'm like, well, yeah. Well, I feel the same. Well, of course. And as I'm reading myself and I'm like, oh, this is me. And it helped me understand myself. But one of the traits of strong-willed children or people with my personality style is in terms of beliefs, we have this ingrained, very deep sense of a right to ourself. So I have a very deep sense. No one taught me that, Stephanie. Like I just had, it was definitely modeled by my mom, but she has that as well. It's a right to myself. So if someone tries to tell me to wear something I don't want to wear or do something I don't want to do, I'm very quick to go, no, you don't get to tell me what to do. Almost like it can be a bad side, right? Like there can be a negative where we buck up against authority. It can be difficult for no reason. So there's definitely flaws and struggles with that. But the reason I bring that up is when I'm coaching, for example, I have a coaching group called Goal Getters Club, and I'm coaching in business, just like I did with the Business Boutique Academy. And I remember getting a question one day, and this woman said, "I have a coffee shop, and I just need to know, should I accept tips? Should I accept tips at checkout?" And I said, "Do you want to accept tips?" And you could tell it never crossed her mind that she got to decide if she accepted tips in her business or not. There's no right or wrong. If you accept tips, great. And if you don't accept tips, it's red and blue, exactly like you're saying. But when I said to her, you get to decide, this is so obvious to me that you get to have a right to your life, to your business. It's your business. You get to decide. That is actually so freeing for people. And I think that it can be difficult to remember that when you have a society and pressure telling you, no, it's only red. No, it's only red. No, there's only one way to parent. There's only one way to feed your kids, whatever. And so I just love that you are bringing it back to the most simple concepts. This is your life. You have a right to decide what's right for you. So I have a question for you that I think is a really hard one. Okay. And it's hard for me to figure out. And I'm curious your thoughts on this because I don't have this figured out. How do you tease out the voices? So we have all these voices, we have all these pressures. How do you tease out, okay, this is actually a voice of wise counsel I should heed and listen to. This is a voice of the Lord saying, no, you are called to do this or convicted to do this or compelled to do this. This is just your past trauma speaking to you and you need to not listen to that. That is the pressure you're feeling from the circles you're running in or Instagram. You need to tease that out. Because there are some voices that are guiding us, the Holy Spirit guiding us, of this is what's right for you. Even right now, Stephanie, I'm in a season where the Lord has asked me to give something up. And I don't feel convicted that that thing he's asked me to give up is wrong, but in this season, he's asked me to give it up. And so it's like, that's not right for everybody, but it's learning to tease out which voices we listen to and which ones we don't, and which one is ours in the midst of all the noise. How do you discern that?
I love that you asked that, because this is like, I've gotten a lot of practice with it. So one of the things that is a really great starting point is like, before you're even in a situation where you're trying to figure out something from, do I want to have another baby, to do I accept tips at my coffee shop? Like whatever the thing is figuring out who's in your cabinet. And I use the word cabinet because I'm a big West Wing nerd. Like love the show West Wing, and there's a presidential cabinet, and it's 15 people, I believe. I might be getting that wrong, but it's these advisors to the president who are all experts in their area of expertise, and I love the expectation of this that it sets for the person in charge, because they don't have to be an expert about the interior and education and state and like all these different areas. They have people who they can go to get help. And that's so good, because it is impossible to be an expert in everything. And so I think assembling our cabinet, figuring out who the people are who are in our corner, who we listen to, who we trust their sense of direction, we trust their sources. You know how you, like, if you have some friends who will tell you like I read an article the other day and it said that blah, blah, blah. And you go, where did you read that? Like, that's not real. Or
Us Weekly? Okay.
Yeah, like, I don't think that's a real article. Or, you have a friend who you're like, oh, you read books that I would read, but hadn't gotten a chance to yet. Or you read sources that are like really, really well vetted. That's the work that you're doing in figuring out who your cabinet is. You're also working to figure out who can advise you without having a horse in the race. Your mom, for example, may not be the best person to advise you on whether or not to have more grandchildren, because I think most grandmothers would say like, more please, more please, more please.
What a great example. Gosh, that's a great example.
Some people just don't, they're wonderful. They love you so much, but they just don't have the experience or the expertise or the distance to be able to guide you in these different areas of your life. So I think that starting there and figuring out like who is in your corner, who do you listen to, is a really great place to start, because then in the process of figuring out who is in your cabinet, you're also weeding out who's not. And so that way, when you have someone at your family function who gives you parenting advice and you're like, it's much easier to say, hey, mentally, don't say this out loud. Or, I mean, you can, depends on your personality type. Depends on your relationship with them, but
it's just be cause and fight at Thanksgiving all the time.
You're not in my cabinet. Excuse me. Pipe down. You get to say in your own head, that person's not in my cabinet. And you can just smile and say, great idea. Thanks so much. Okay. And go get more potatoes. Like it really, that filters out, that does a really good job of filtering out a lot of the voices. But then when you're trying to make a big decision or a little decision, the place that I always start is, what do you think you're supposed to do? So with the tipping example, like, let me use an example I can walk further down. So when my husband and I were newly married, we were, let me back up a little bit. I was not sure that I wanted to be a mom. I'm not the person who like came out of the womb wanting to be a mom. I want all kinds of things in life. And I thought at some point I'd want to be a mom, but I wasn't totally sure. And like, that's just who I am. And so there was a long time, many years, where we were trying to figure out if parenthood is something like a journey we wanted to try to walk down. And Carl and I were sitting at a restaurant and we were planning a trip to, I think we were going to Italy. Maybe we're going to Spain. I think we're going to Spain. And we're sitting there. We have all these like guidebooks around us. And this couple leans over from the table next to us and says, "You're going to Spain? That's so great. Well, you guys must not have kids." And we're like, "Oh, no, we don't." And they said, "Well, travel now, because once you have kids, you won't be able to." And she wasn't the only person to say that to us, but I can't count the amount of people who told us, you cannot travel when you have kids. Like, it is over when you have kids. Whatever it is, it's over when you have kids. And I remember talking to Carl, maybe a year later, And he's like, Steph, why are you acting like your life is over when we have kids? And I said, because it is. Because these things that we love to do, we can no longer do as soon as we have kids. And he said, who told you it had to be that way? And that's when I was able to pause and go, who told me this? And the only voice I could trace it back to was some random lady at a restaurant years ago who doesn't know me, doesn't know Carl, doesn't know our situation. Now, granted, my kids are 3.5 and we have not traveled very much in the last 3.5 years, but we're about to. And so there's a time and place for everything. But my point is, a lot of times the voice in our head is not someone who's in our cabinet. And so I think pausing and saying, hey, what do I think I'm supposed to do? And then teasing that out one step further and saying, but who told me it had to be that way? And is that someone that I want running my life? Usually the answer is no.
I love this so much because the way that I've said it in my own head, I guess, when I'm making decisions, or even when I'm helping a girlfriend process something or helping someone in my coaching group process something, I try to often question assumptions. It's really easy to question assumptions when you're the outside person. So if I'm someone's coach or I'm someone's friend, or if I was talking to you, it's easy for me to question it because I'm not in it, right? Like I'm not in those decisions day in and day out. And so I could say, well, who says? Who says? Well, I can't just do this on YouTube. Well, who says? Well, I can't build my business this way. Who says? I can't charge that. Who says? I just love that question because you're questioning the assumptions there, and it gives people permission to open their mind to a different way to do things. Often people will project their own limitations, their own insecurities onto you. And so that person may have felt that limitation that may have been passed down from their great-grandmother that you can't travel. And she could have traveled, but she projected it onto you. And that's what we do. We often project onto others what they can and can't do, whether we mean to or not. And it's really interesting because that can affect our decisions for decades, where we don't do things we want to do, don't do things we could do, simply because of a stranger in a coffee shop that doesn't even know you years ago. So I love that your husband was able to question that assumption and be that outside voice in that decision, in that example, because I think we have those examples all day, every day, and we don't realize how much they're influencing our behavior when we are living small, staying stuck in ways we don't want to, and that we can resent. We can resent, I can't travel, and like, but man, you can, And so I think we have way more power than we realize. And so you're able to question that assumption and go, well, who says? And I think that's just a really good principle to carry with you in any decision. When you're feeling pressure, feeling anxiety, feeling angst or resentment building up, and go, okay, why do I feel this way? Who says? Who says I have to do it this way?
When you look at the who says, maybe you heard some random TV show one time say, or some random, quote unquote expert say one time that, good parents only feed their kids, or good parents have to feed their kids 2 carrot sticks every single meal or whatever. When we say who says, and then go, is that someone that I want to be in charge of my life? Then it gets ridiculous. You're like,
right.
Wait a minute. No, that lady doesn't even know me. She's not the boss of my life. And then you go, well, yeah, exactly.
Right. And I think we have such a strong internal guide, internal voice. And if you're a believer, if you're watching this and you're a believer, you have the Holy Spirit. So the power that raised Jesus Christ from the dead is the same power that's in you. And that guide, he is a guide. He will guide you into all truth. He will guide you into what is right for you. All right, y'all, that's it for this week's episode of Get Your Hopes Up. Be sure to tune in next week for part 2 with Stephanie Mae Wilson as we continue our conversation about finding your own voice and creating a life you love. I love hanging out with you every Monday to help you get to know God, get closer to Him, and get your hopes up again. Be sure to share this episode on Instagram and Facebook so other people can get their hopes up as well. And follow the Christy Wright podcast channel so you never miss a new show. Then I'll see you next week for another new episode of Get Your Hopes Up.
Hey, I'm Greer, host of the Unfinished Idea podcast, where listeners and I get to journey together to better understand the neurodiverse world. Together with my husband, we have 2 boys and 2 dogs and raising a child with additional needs. Our day-to-day experience isn't being talked about in everyday life, and I see a gap in those leading people who are neurodivergent. Whether you're a parent, a friend, a teacher, or a neighbor, the neurodivergent world is all around us. So this podcast is for you. I have conversations over a cup of tea or coffee, helping to bring awareness about how neurodivergent people experience the world, as well as families who are raising children with different needs. This podcast will share practical help, tips, and the joys, struggles, and differences in being neurodivergent or raising a child who is. Each week, I will spend 30 minutes talking and interviewing others in the neurodiverse space and giving you the opportunity to learn and grow and feel seen and heard by how we interact with each other and the world. Search for The Unfinished Idea in your favorite podcast app and come learn about the neurodivergent world. I'm looking forward to seeing you there.